let's talk about leadership theories. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, theories, but stay with me because this content shows up on the SHRM exam, and more importantly, it shows up in your real life as an HR professional every single day. So tonight we are going to cover 3 leadership theories, and I'm going to show you that these are not as intimidating as they sound. We're starting with Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory. I want to take you back to a time in my career when I was working in the energy sector as part of a global HR team. The team was restructured, and I suddenly had 5 direct reports. Now, here's what you need to understand about where I was in that season. I was a new people leader. I was still learning my management style, learning how to respond to the needs of a team, while also managing my own expectations. My biggest concern, and I can smile about this now, was that I did not want anyone on my team to miss their bonus because of something I did or didn't do. That was the weight I was carrying. So in the beginning, whenever my manager and I met for our monthly one-on-ones, she would share my team's goals. But she would also give me very specific direction. She'd say who should handle which task, where I needed to focus my attention. She was explaining her reasoning, but the truth is she was the one making the decisions. According to Hersey and Blanchard, that is the selling style of leadership. She was keeping control while still bringing me along. As months went by, I became more confident, I understood my team better, and at that point my manager shifted. She would give me the goals, and it was my responsibility to determine how we were going to get there. She might offer a suggestion here or there, but they were genuinely suggestions. I could take them or leave them. That is the participating style of leadership. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I had a counterpart who was affected by the same restructuring, but the difference was that he was a seasoned leader. He had been running a high-performing team for years. When our manager gave him the same level of direction she was giving me, he didn't receive it as support. He experienced it as micromanagement, and honestly, he was right. What he needed was the delegation style of leadership, where the employee directs their own path and the leader steps back. Now, both of us also had entry-level employees on our teams, people who were new to the industry, new to the work. For those employees, the most appropriate style was directing, where the leader makes the decisions and provides close guidance. Let me show you how this might appear on your exam. You might see a question like, according to Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership model, which leadership style would be most effective for a first-year apprentice? You would select directing because a first-year apprentice is still developing the skill and experience needed to work independently. The model is telling you to match the leadership approach to where the employee actually is in their development. Let's recap. Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory gives us 4 flexible leadership styles. Directing. The leader makes all the decisions. Best for employees who are new to a role, a project, or an organization. Coaching. The leader is still directive, but also works to build the employee's skill and confidence. Participating. The leader provides minimal direction and acts more as a support. The employee has the knowledge and is empowered to make decisions. Delegation. Highly hands-off. The employee is capable and self-directed. The leader trusts the process. The key word in this entire theory is situational. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. The effective leader reads the room and the person. Now let's move to our second theory, Fiedler's contingency theory. This one reminds me of a production manager I encountered early in my HR career. The department had just lost their manager, and this was not a pleasant transition. That previous manager had been difficult, disrespectful, and had done real damage to the team's trust. So leadership brought in someone from a sister plant, someone with a strong track record of turning around struggling production departments. He came in, assessed the equipment, the goals, the workflows, and built a solid plan of attack. He had done this successfully before, but this time it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because nobody considered the environment he was walking into. These employees had been mistreated. Their trust in leadership was fractured. What the team needed was a leader whose natural style was centered on rebuilding relationships, not just restructuring tasks. That is the heart of Fiedler's contingency theory. According to Fiedler, every leader has a natural leadership style, and that style is relatively fixed. It doesn't bend easily. So instead of trying to change the leader, the focus should be on matching the leader to the right situation. If the situation changes, you may need a different leader altogether. Famehler tells us that the favorability of any situation is shaped by three factors: leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. Leader-member relations: the level of trust and harmony between the leader and the team. Task structure: how clearly defined the work and responsibilities are. Position power: the degree of authority the leader holds to make decisions, issue rewards, or address performance. In my story, the new manager had been successful before because those three conditions aligned with his natural style. But in this new situation, the leader-member relations were fractured and his style simply did not fit. Fiedler would say, bring in a different leader, one whose style is built for relationship repair. On your exam, you might see a question like, which leadership theory requires an assessment of the situation to determine the effectiveness of the leader? That answer is Fiedler's contingency theory. Our final theory tonight is trait theory, and to understand it, we need to start with where it came from. In the mid-1800s, a concept called the great man theory emerged. The idea was straightforward. Great leaders throughout history all shared certain characteristics, and these traits were innate. Confidence, courage, honesty, these were not learned. You were born with them or you weren't. And if you weren't, the theory said you simply could not be a truly great leader. Now, the challenge with the great man theory is that it falls apart fairly quickly under scrutiny. What do you do with the leader who has all of those traits but is still ineffective? Or the person who lacks some of those characteristics but leads exceptionally well? The theory cannot answer those questions. That is where trait theory steps in. It agrees that certain traits are commonly associated with great leaders, things like confidence, assertiveness, creativity, and intelligence. But trait theory takes it further by saying that while some of these traits may come naturally, they can also be developed. Leadership potential isn't entirely fixed at birth. I think about a help desk technician I worked with early in my career. He was phenomenal at his job, technically sharp, good with people, able to smooth over problems before they escalated. He had real leadership potential, but he lacked assertiveness. When he was challenged, even when he was right, he would back down. And because of that, he was consistently overlooked. If he had invested in developing that one quality, his entire trajectory could have looked different. That is the promise inside trait theory. The traits are real. Some come naturally, and some can be built. On your exam, you might see a question like, which theory of leadership asserts that great leaders possess certain common characteristics? The answer is trait theory. So let's bring it together. Tonight, we covered three leadership theories that show up both on your SHRM exam and in the everyday realities of HR practice. Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory, 4 flexible styles matched to the development level of the employee. Fiedler's contingency theory, a leader's effectiveness depends on how well their natural style fits the situation. Trait theory, great leaders share common characteristics, and while some of those traits are natural, others can be intentionally developed. Study these, practice applying them, and remember, perfect practice makes perfect results.